Gareth Ellis. This is my 1 to 13, the best players that I've ever played alongside. Fullback, been lucky enough to play with some great fullbacks. In particular, James Tedesco. He was just coming through as I left West Tigers. But the player that I'm going with is Brent Webb. He was elusive. He was one of the few fullbacks at the time that could pass, and brought that sort of extra standoff to your game. So number 1, Brent Webb. Number 2, a big fella. Unfortunately, his career was cut short by injury, but he was absolutely massive for us at West Tigers, and that's Taniela Tuiaki. Number 3 would have to be the grumpiest man I've ever played alongside also, and that would be Keith Linea. Just so destructive, just the perfect centre really. Lucky enough to play with him at Leeds and international level, and certainly someone who you were glad to have alongside you. In the other centre, another lad from West Tigers, the ultimate professional, did everything right. Was only young while I was at West Tigers, but he had an older head on his shoulders, speed to burn. He's now plying his trade in the back row, but back then in the centre he was absolutely massive for us, and that's Chris Lawrence. On the other wing, number 5, I'd have to go, again this has been a tough position to pick, but I'd have to go Ryan Hall. He just, the way he came through, you know, one minute he was playing Alton Raiders, next minute he was starring for Leeds Rhinos, and not long after that with England. Absolutely mountain of a man, does all the hard yards in the backfield, but one of the best finishers in the world. Number 6, probably the best player that I've played with and against. He's phenomenal, made me feel really welcome at West Tigers off the field. But the way he played the game, it's exceptional, and it's what every kid wanted to be, and that's Benji Marshall. Number 7, a really good friend of mine, and again, someone who will be remembered forever, particularly throughout the Super League era. Back when I played with him at Leeds, he was this try-scoring machine, and his try-scoring record is absolutely phenomenal. He's adapted his game recently. He's a bit more, you know, his pass selection is unbelievable. His kicking game is absolutely exquisite, and that's Danny Mcguire. In the front row, I'd have to go again. Probably the best forward I've ever played with, Jamie Peacock. Just tough, uncompromising, and his best quality was the fact that you just had to look at him in the dressing room and you knew you had to play well for that man. The best player, along with Benji Marshall, that I've ever played with. Number 9, there's a close call, this one. Again, West Tigers, Robbie Farah, really skillful. Massive player for us at West Tigers when we had a few good years back there. But the man I've gone with, who I've played alongside with most recently, and come up with some massive defensive efforts, none more so than that one tackle, one of 50 odd in the Challenge Cup final, Danny Alton. The other front rower, another uncompromising player, a legendary player, both on this side of the world and in Australia. His legacy lives on, in both sides of the world. He was the first name that people spoke about while I was in Australia, and that's Adrian Morley. Moving on to the back row, obviously the position I played most of my career, but another West Tigers player, Chris Anton. Just a workhorse, absolute workhorse, and again, someone who really helped me settle in while I was at West Tigers, became a really good friend of mine. But his skill level, his work ethic was unsecond to none. The type of player that you want to play with week in, week out. The other second rower, a player I played against in Australia, and then a few years ago he came over to Hull, and he's been absolutely massive for us. His professionalism, his work rate, his destructiveness when he carries the ball is a massive asset for Hull FC at the moment, and that's Mark Monticello. Loose forward, in my opinion, the best player particularly in the Super League era. He was absolutely phenomenal for 5 or 6 years when he was at St Helens. Lucky enough to play with him for Great Britain and England. Had everything. All-round player, skill with the ball, tough, and a great bloke off the field. Really helped me adapt to sort of life in the international scene, and that's Paul Sculthorpe. That was Gareth Ellis, and that was my 1 to 13.